Welcome to the True That Show, a show about lifepreneurship presented with wit, humor, and banter by Deborah Drummond and Caroline Blanchard. A lifepreneur is someone who's living life the way an entrepreneur runs their business. All in. Lifepreneurs are rock stars. Lifepreneurs are people who are brave, who risk, who live full on, who think out of the box, who win this thing called life. Lifepreneurs are around us every day. They are everyday heroes. Join Deborah and Caroline, these two stage-walking women who tell it like it is. You'll learn from the most incredible lifepreneurs who will inspire you to be the best version of you. Now here are your hosts.
Welcome back to another amazing show on True That. We are so excited today. We have an amazing guest, but as you know, myself and Caroline, we hardly ever talk to each other. So we got to check in and see how each other's doing today. How are you doing over there?
I'm doing good. What about you with your polka dot dress?
Oh, you know what? I was just talking about this. I should have known better than to wear something. I thought I'd wear something a little different for you guys that are on the podcast and can't see. I'm kind of in my Southern country look today with my turquoise, and I actually did make apple pie last night. So I know, right? I know. Did you believe that I do have a domestic?
No, wait. Let's pause that 2 seconds. You made apple pie. Is there gluten in it?
No.
No. Okay. Is there sugar?
No.
Oh my gosh. So it's dairy free?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, it doesn't sound as attractive, but I'm glad. Good job.
Okay. I'm going to send out the recipe to everybody. It's very good. It's very good. I actually don't make the pie crust. I buy a gluten-free, dairy-free pie crust. I know, I do. But I make the filling. And I add the love.
Okay, so tune in for our next cooking session in about 2 months. But for now, Deb, what are we talking about today? Well, actually, I do know. Whoops, I do know, and I'm going to bring it to you. I'm going to throw it at you this time instead of having it thrown at me. Well, today it's going to be a bit more of a serious subject because we are not just only crazy or funny, we're also like deep sometimes, but we're talking about breaking free. And breaking free can have a lot of different meaning for different people. You know, it can be for little things, it can be for big things, it can be for from things you see, and it can be from things you don't see. So I want to ask you, Deb, what is the most significant thing for you that you had to break free that created a big difference in your life?
Wow. Are we doing a mini series? Because I think I could do a mini series.
Right? We'll do it after the cooking show. Yeah.
Okay. After the cooking show, we're doing a mini series on breaking free. So look, I mean, for me being a mind, body, spirit person, when I hear about breaking free, it's like breaking free from my own, chains to life, my belief systems, the things that I thought were real and kept me in situations that were not healthy, right? So I had to do a lot of breaking free of my own patterns, the way I thought about myself, my self-esteem, my self-value, all of that stuff. Because that's probably the biggest piece for me. But there was a couple of times in my life was really profound, and I'll share them with you. Because again, we are getting a little, so I'll get real and transparent. So one of the biggest break frees that I ever had was, everyone that knows me knows how much I love music. And so I spent a large part of my life in the music industry, doing the band thing and the nightclub thing and cocktail waitressing and bartending and managing clubs and all that kind of good stuff. Because honestly, I have a serious addiction to music and I am not prepared to go to a 12-step program about it yet. So I was in this kind of scene. I was in this environment. I was in this culture. And that culture, has a fraction of it that can be fairly unhealthy, right? Not only the nights with the bands and the relationships, and there tends to be, at least when I was in it, quite a bit of drama. And there was aspects of it that were pretty unhealthy, right? And so I had gone to a couple of funerals of people that were close to me, and I was like, man, this scene is getting pretty unhealthy. It certainly wasn't breeding positivity and enlightenment. And I didn't even know what those were. I just knew that what was happening around me wasn't cool. And I was way too young to be going to that many funerals and watching that much drama. And so I literally, went to work. And when I went to work, I didn't get off work till 2:33 in the morning when we left the club. And then we went to go have dinner, just kind of like anyone else would when they finished work. So, I'm getting home at 4 or 5 in the morning. And I went into the bathroom to kind of like brush my teeth and call it a night. And, we'd all kind of gone out after work and done our thing. And literally I'm standing in front of the mirror. And this is kind of what I call it was like the most pinnacle piece of change for me. And I looked in the mirror and the mirror literally went black. Like I could not see myself. I could not see myself. And it could have been 3 seconds, 30 seconds, but it felt like it was like 10 minutes. I was like, I could feel this panic of not being able to see myself. And then all of a sudden I saw myself in the mirror. And what happened? I don't know, but it scared me enough to call my boss the next day and go, I'm not coming into work today. And I was, of course, working the club. And he's like, oh, so you're sick or something? I'm like, no, like I'm just never coming back. And he goes, what? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just never coming back. I need to change something. And I literally went from that scene and got involved in personal development. And that's when I kind of started to take a look at my life and what was happening and why it was happening and exploring my childhood and la, 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 la. Who knew that journey was going to be what it was? But that was breaking free from an environment that I felt comfortable in until I didn't feel comfortable. And I had no idea where it would take me. I just knew I knew I couldn't go back.
And I think you nailed the big thing here on the head is that a part of breaking free that is so scary is that no matter if you're going for better or worse, you don't know where you're going. You're leaving your comfort zone. You're leaving your known space. You're jumping into a black hole basically and being like, okay, so I say that because I hear quite often in a lot of different situations, and because that applies for a lot of different situations. But we'll watch someone going through something, and I'm bad with that. Like I ache thinking, well, just put an end to this situation, or change this, or change that, or leave him, or stop drinking. You have all the solution for the person, and we don't understand why the person doesn't make that move. And one of the biggest reasons I think is the fear of jumping in that black hole. So good for you for doing that, because I know as well that, especially in those days when we didn't have to declare all our tips, man, working in bars was quite, I made a lot of money too in bars. It was very lucrative until I guess, yes, you realize the environment that comes with it. But anyway, enough about us. Let's bring in our speaker, and I will leave you the honor of introducing her because I know she's a good friend of yours.
Absolutely. So it's such a pleasure. So when I think of Lis, I definitely think of parent. I definitely think of a woman because I've watched this kind of journey. And honestly, I came in on the back end, when you're running the marathon and you come in on that last quarter. I think I really came into her life on that last quarter where she was just starting to sense her own sense of worthiness. And so as shaky as she was, like literally her voice would shake sometimes when we talk, she reached out to me on a social media platform. And I think we became what I call instant soul safe sisters. So people that have kind of had the same kind of, experience, kind of like when I met Caroline. And you just know that you have a friendship of duration. And, I'm in Vancouver and she's in London. And so we just started this relationship. And so I've been able to watch this last quarter. And Caroline and I both, are such advocates, and we're kind of the people that will get behind and help push people no matter what, when we know that they're pushing towards something for themselves. And I think, Caroline, you nailed it on the head, how difficult it can be sometimes when you want it for someone else. So here's the ace in the deck, because, there are 52 cards and everybody's at different stages. And then you've got those people that are really ready. And all they need is actually bumper railing. They don't even need you to push them because something inside already switched. The switch flipped already, and I met her at that flip switching stage. So I'm going to let her tell her own story, but this woman just had her first ever book launch that both myself and Caroline were honored to be on. I was blown away that she gave me the honor of being able to write the foreword to her book. And as a woman who's had to overcome something very similar to what she experienced, because I think it's the same for everybody, but never the same for everybody. It was really an honor to do that part of my healing process for sure. And I just know that this book needs to be in everyone's hands, because if we don't think we need to read it ourselves, there's always a part of us that could move more forward in empowerment, but also we know somebody that we should be lending that book out to fairly regularly. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to let Liz introduce herself and tell us a little bit of your story, Liz, and what the name of your book is and why you decided to name your book that, and kind of introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers.
Okay, hello. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm well chuffed. I've still got that shaky voice a little bit, but we'll go with it. So yeah, I'm Lis Hoyte, and I'm in very near to London in the UK. And previously, by profession, I've always been a teacher in high school. So sort of Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4, GCSE, psychology, health and social care. And that's kind of, been my background. I've also been a youth support worker, so I've always kind of had that drive to want to do things and want to help and support, especially young people who were sort of potentially struggling or needed that little bit of extra help and support. And so yeah, that's kind of my sort of background, where I sort of came from. But I've always loved to study. A lot of people, my friends, kind of like growing up, they would call me the bookworm. I would just always be studying. That would be my thing. Put me at home with an episode of Columbo and and a book to read, and I was sold. And so yeah, and then obviously things happen, and your life starts to take turns and go through different avenues that you didn't necessarily expect that you would find yourself in. And kind of here I am now, sort of written my first book, which is called Break Free, and the subtitle of it is a transformational journey and paradigm shift out of coercive control. And yeah, it was based on a coercive control and relationship sort of over an 18-year span. And just to kind of, for those of you who may not sort of be aware, but basically what coercive control is, it's a pattern of behavior or a pattern of acts that's used to create codependency in order to exert control over somebody. Usually in sort of intimate relationships, can be family relationships as well, those types of things. But there is that, it's the codependency and the exertion of the control to dominate somebody else. And I kind of, went through that relationship, as I say, for 18 years, not really understanding what type of relationship I was going through. Wasn't really aware of it, to be quite honest with you. And it wasn't until I started to kind of look at, okay, I'm in this relationship, but what am I feeling? What are the signs? And so I found myself, being isolated from friends and family. All my time, if I was out, was being monitored. Loads of phone calls, text messages. Where are you? What are you doing? And initially, this was like, oh, she's just checking up on me. This is okay. This, he cares. This is great. But when that kind of happens incrementally and over time, you start to feel a little bit different, a little bit odd, but still in the position of not being able to place it anywhere, because there was never a case where violence was something that I experienced within the relationship that I would classify. There'd been incidents, but nothing that I would say, oh, I'm being beaten or I'm being hit or raped or anything like that, which is horrendous in itself. But I couldn't put my finger on what I was going through. And actually, it wasn't until very much later on in the relationship that I then realised, because the other things, for example, would be financial abuse. I went through a lot of financial abuse, and strict routines that kind of had to be adhered to, and if there wasn't, there was sort of this silent treatment, or I wasn't able to do things properly, or the humiliation, sort of trying to make out it was a joke, but it wasn't. And eventually it kind of started to break me down. And it wasn't really until 2017 that I kind of really realised what I was experiencing and going through. And obviously, kind of fast forward 2 years after that, kind of came out of that relationship and ultimately wrote the book a year later. So yeah, that's kind of where it sort of, you know, started and developed, and those warning signs and the awareness. Hence the reason why I wanted to write the book initially, was to spread awareness, but also just help one person going through what I was going through, because I was kind of reaching out but didn't really know what I was reaching out for, because I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I just couldn't do it. And then once I decided to write the book, I was like, I wonder who else feels like this, who else is going through this. And as I said, it was just that one person that I wanted to help, because I suffered so badly. I didn't really know what else to do with myself. So
I find that so courageous, honestly. And, you know, when I listen to your story and read your book, I feel like there's parts of my relationships that were like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to identify when it's abuse and when it's not, because, like you said, there's no bruises, there's no blood, there's no pictures you can take to show. But I honestly think that if I look at my lowest moments in my life, it wasn't when I had a big car accident or when I gave birth or when I was suffering physically. It was when someone was bringing me down, my self-esteem and everything. So I find that, you know, women like you, to eventually stand up and say it's enough, it's more than courageous, because you must be fighting with your inside voice as well. Like, no, I'm not thinking properly. Oh, it's all on me. And plus being told and being brainwashed. But what was the moment, Liz, that, you know, you said, because it went on for 18 years. Well, I'm going to ask you 2 questions in there. Did you have people telling you, you know, what are you doing? Or it's not okay that he's treating you this way? And then what was the breaking point when you said enough and you left? Because that's quite a, you know, I know you have kids as well, so it's quite a big move to be. So I'll let you answer those 2 questions.
Yeah, so I think for the, you know, like you said, it is that thing. And I think 2 things happened for me when, you know, that if people were to pose that question. First off, that question kind of didn't come, wasn't focused on me or wasn't asked a lot, because I never really spoke out about it, because I wasn't quite sure. And as I say, I kind of, you know, we got together in 2001, and it was by 2017, and it wasn't actually until I did my master's, which was a massive transition for me, that I was able to talk to people doing that course who had then advised me about what I was going through, who had been, you know, people working in law enforcement. So that question for me wasn't really there, because I didn't speak out, and there were only 2 people that actually really knew the in-depth of what I was going through, but equally didn't really understand the true nature of it. And another important point that you were just talking about, Caroline, is the fact that you know, you have what's going on inside internally, but you have the external world. So while the external world and people were saying, looking in at my life, going, oh my gosh, oh, you're so lucky. Oh God, he takes the children away on holiday. Oh, my other half wouldn't have a clue. God, you don't have to do any Christmas shopping. You don't have to do any wrapping. But actually, those were the things that were taken away from me. So I wasn't, you know, it wasn't my remit to do the Christmas shopping. It had to be done right. I wasn't trusted to do it because of how my capabilities was described. So I always had that pull inside of me, thinking, why am I not being grateful for this? You know, other people are seeing him as this wonderful person. And that kind of, that was really hard for me to accept, but equally, because there was so much gaslighting that happened. And for those people who are not sure, you know, as to what gaslighting is basically the distortion of your own reality. So I had that going on as well. So I didn't trust myself. I couldn't even, you know, really think straight in terms of if I'd put something somewhere. You know, he'd always used to take my keys and, you know, things like that. So I was kind of in my own head, not really knowing if I could trust myself. And then you have the external going, God, your life is brilliant. You live in this lovely place. And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm feeling. So because people weren't aware of what I was feeling, and I wasn't talking about it because I couldn't pinpoint it, which made that really tricky. And kind of to answer, your second question, and what was that point? I think it was making that decision. And I did a speech at the World Coaching Leadership Summit on the 10th of May, and it was entitled "A Decision Can Shift a Paradigm." And that was because I was always wanted to do a master's. Even as a young child, I had like images and visions of me on stage with a scroll, but as a child, and I always had that. So when I came to make that decision in 2017, I said, "Oh, I really want to do a master's." I think his response just shocked me, and he said, "If you do a master's, it's going to be the end of this relationship." And I was like, "Oh, really?" But it was like, you can't cope. You're not going to be able to cope. Why are you doing this? You're not going to be able to cope. You're not going to be able to work and do both. And work, my previous job as the youth sport, had contacted me and said, "Do you want to do a part-time teaching job?" So these opportunities were happening for me, but I wasn't being supported. He kind of wanted me to stay in that traditional stay-at-home mother type role. And I was like, why are you not supporting me on this? But the wonderful thing now when I look back on, Caroline, is the fact that it wasn't just a decision, it was a desire. I always had the desire to do a master, so it wasn't something that I could just let go. It wasn't something I was prepared to lay down and go, no, I'm okay, don't worry about it. I couldn't do that with this because I was so wanting to do it. I desired to do it. And actually that really was the massive transformation when I did this master's, because even though I went through, it cut off, the Wi-Fi, so I couldn't, have access to printing things, or my keys would be stolen right before presentation. So, I would kind of be all panicked when I arrived. And in my head, I thought, I've got to do this for 2 years, and I'm battling against this for 2 years. This shouldn't be right. Somebody should be supporting me with this dream of mine. And it wasn't like that. And for me, I then questioned why somebody would be so threatened that I would want to do those things for myself. Why would someone be so threatened to not want to allow me to go out and earn my own money? And that was massive warning signs. And then also the support of the people who were on the course. And my master's was in crime and community safety, evidence-based practice. So these people were kind of within law enforcement, and they were like, hang on a minute. And that's when they kind of pinpointed to me, look, have a look at this, because they used to see the amount of text messages that used to come through on my phone while I'd be trying to study. So I'd just end up packing all the books away and just going home, because I just couldn't concentrate. It just dominated me so much. And so yeah, it's that for me was the turning point. And that for me was, this person doesn't love me and support me, not how I need to be for this stage in my life. And ultimately, that's when I, made the decision in 2008, December, that enough was enough, and I was going to do it. And actually, it was the masters, because I always thought that I was protecting the children. I always thought that they didn't see this, or that they didn't hear it because they were young at the time. And actually, it's not until recently now that I realised how much they did remember from that time. But equally, it's not something that I can change now. But again, something that we can all sort of be aware of. With children, they are really susceptible to their environment. And if I had that knowledge then, I probably would have left sooner. If I'm honest, but because I thought I was doing a good job, and I thought that I was trying to keep a family together, because I never wanted to have a broken home for my children. I always wanted to keep that sort of close-knit family, but ultimately not at the expense of my mental health, and certainly not at the expense of my children. So yeah.
Well, that's very incredible. And there were so many things in there that I'd love to just heighten, but you said a word that I don't think very many people have an understanding of. I think that when people are listening, they can relate either to themselves or to a family member or to a sister or to a daughter or to themselves. Like, wow, I've had someone take my voice away. We all know what it's like when someone's like, I remember when I went to start in a aromatherapy company, and one of my dearest friends, like, why would you do, like, no one's ready for that. And inside I'm like, and I went and did it. There's those small little pieces of non-support. And then you've got the big stuff. And you've got the big stuff where someone is physical, or the neighbors are talking, or your girlfriend pulls you aside and go, I just can't watch you go back into this relationship. You know, it's not serving you. And there's so many different levels of what you say. I remember you sharing a story with me once about how he really was derogatory towards a part of your body, towards your feet, and how that really impacted you, and how you didn't think you had beautiful feet because he insulted your feet. I mean, all of those very, like, they don't sound subtle to me when you said that to me, but for you, it's like, oh my gosh, those shoes don't look good on you kind of thing. And just how it is, like, little bit by little bit by little bit. It's kind of like, you know, compound interest. But you said something that I said a lot of people I don't think understand, and that's financial abuse, right? Because our finances are, like, when people think about why I'm staying, a lot of what comes up for people that want to go is, how am I going to support myself? Where am I going to get this? How am I going to feed my kids? Can you elaborate a little bit on what, because someone might be going, oh, that's stuck for me. But I remember when I first heard from one of my girlfriends that she was on an allowance, and I was like, and I almost, like, held my stomach. Now, I didn't know whether that was a healthy, like, hey, this is how much is separated from the family income for me to go do stuff, or whether this is all you get and you don't see more. You know, that was an exploratory conversation. But what did financial abuse look like for you?
So for me, there was very similar, you know, to your friend. There was a certain amount of money that was paid into my account, and that was very little, and that was for me to just survive for the month. Anything I needed, anything I wanted, but it was always leaving me to the point where I kind of, you know, I literally just could do the basics. So there was no extras for, you know, going out or socializing or anything, which actually in turn feeds that isolation from friends and family in that respect. And so that was always quite controlled. And that made things really difficult. But because he had the money and he was in so much control over that, you then start thinking about finances differently. Like you said, what am I going to do? How am I actually going to get out of this situation? Hence the reason why I wanted to get the part-time work, I wanted to do the masters, and I wanted to be able to earn my own money. And as soon as that started to come to the fore, that's when things started to change. So it was almost a compulsion to keep me where I was, to give me this allowance, to almost make me want more or to make me need more, but rely on him. As I was saying, within the definition, it's about creating that codependency. You don't feel like you can break free on your own because you have this in the back of your head. What am I going to do if I've got children? How am I going to support my children if? And so that kind of, for me, was it just encompassed how financial abuse was exerted over me. And then but equally, when I wanted to then eradicate that and get rid of that, to start work, the amount of pit holes and sabotage that was put in place in order to prevent me from earning that money and going that step further to be able to be self-sufficient, was almost an onslaught in itself, in terms of, you know, me earning and finances. So yeah, I think the whole, for me, the whole issue around, you know, financial abuse and financial control has, you know, was very evident within the relationship. But equally, when I tried to do something to change that, you're then faced with that almost, like, they sort of saw it as disrespect. How dare you think that you can do this, because if you do a master's you might earn more than me. And that was that fear inside of him that he just didn't want to allow. So I think for me, that's what made the whole kind of financial abuse really tricky in my situation.
And you know, I think there's really a stigma behind all of this, and it's so hard to, you know, I want to have an opinion on certain things, but for me this is so hard. Like, women who stay home or men who stay home, you know, there's now men who stay home and the women work, but I mean, when the two parents are not working, it's so difficult, because it almost seems like one is making money and the other one isn't, but it's not that. It's like one is raising the family and has that job that is not attached to an hourly wage, and the other one does. And anyway, that's probably another complete different podcast, but I'm really hoping there's going to be, you know, with time, we're going to evaluate, and that women who choose to stay home won't have to face that. I guess that's just a comment, because when you say that, it's like literally my heart ache, because I know how it feels. But I really, really want to, you know, show here and really, you know, looking for my word here, I really want to take a minute to say how strong you are. And I really think that people have to read your book, because we think that these things happen when you're weaker, when you're not educated, when this, when that, and it's not true. Like, you, just the fact that you had a vision when you were a kid of saying, I'm going to do my master. I did university and I did less than a master, and gosh, it was hard. You know, it is hard. It takes discipline. It takes consistency. You really need to be determined to put that amount of work for 2 years, that, you know, may give you something. So you did all of that, plus fighting someone who was telling you don't do it. But I really want you to, you know, acknowledge yourself for sticking to your dream. Because maybe at some point you were, you know, this person that was hurt and abused, but there was the other side of you who stayed the strong woman of, you know, there is my limit. And I like to say that we always have guardian angels that loves us and won't let us fall too deep. So there's always a limit there. And so the strong woman in you just came back and was like, no. You know, I think we wake up one day and we're like, okay, I am worth this at least. Even if we're worth it, we're worth this at least. So what's, you know, in your book, what do you go through really? And without giving up the book, but just tell us, you know, why should people read it, to understand that it can happen to anyone and it's very sneaky. And, you know.
I think for me, it's, you know, as I said, it was, I always wanted to, when I first came out of the relationship when I moved out with the children in October 2019, I wanted to write the book there and then. I wanted to spread awareness of coercive control, because I had gone through this relationship for so many years but couldn't pinpoint what I was going through, because I didn't kind of fit that typical mold of, you know, being beaten, raped and all the other horrendous things that come along with that type of abuse. And I kind of was like, well, I don't even know why, what's happened. I don't even know where my head is with this. So that's why I initially wanted to write the book, because I wanted to spread awareness of coercive control. What is it? What are the signs? How do you know if you're in that type of relationship? And then I also thought to myself, okay, if I can reach one other person to help and support them with the tools that I have used for myself, then I would have started the momentum in the right direction. And that was my basis. And I think for me, and obviously, you know, you'd have to kind of, you know, it's great to read the book, because it goes through coercive control, but it also looks at, you know, different aspects of situations and experiences that happen in your life that you don't necessarily realize. So it kind of is that light bulb moment. You're like, oh my gosh, that's happened to me, that's happened to me, that's happened to me. And then it kind of, you know, looks at tools as well that you could use in order to help yourself and feel worthy. And I remember always asking myself one question, because I kept reading a lot about self-care, and I kept thinking, what is self-care? And even though I read about it, I watched you know, YouTube like clips on it, what is self-care? And I couldn't do that for myself. And so for me, what I did, I kind of, you know, exchanged it. So I thought, okay, how do I want to show up for my girls? that's where I started in terms of self-care. The self-care is you know, as we know it, you know, you've got to look after yourself. It's things that you can do for yourself to help yourself, to make yourself feel better, which is separate from an outside agency sort of helping you as such with any support tools or mechanisms. And so I said to myself, I couldn't do that. So I can do that. How do I do that for my children? And that's where I started. But it was about trying to focus on the inner game and pay less attention to what was happening externally, in order to find a way to be happy. And I couldn't even start with the word happy. That's how, you know, that's just like testament to how low I was. I couldn't start with happy. I didn't even know what be happy was. Because I was almost a master at hiding how I felt. I would smile, I would laugh, I would compensate. And so I think that the book is grounded in the sense that it has the awareness, it has the tools, but equally it has that, you know, kind of getting rid of that blame and resentment in order to be able to move on with your life, and actually accept that, you know, try to focus your energy on where you want to go as opposed to where you are now. And I think for me that was massive, and it's the hope that, you know, when other people read the book, that they can feel empowered by, you know, reading my story, reading my journey, and seeing that, you know what, things are hard, but actually sometimes being in your place of rock bottom is the best place to start. And it's about reframing a lot of the experiences that you go through to something that can serve you and you can use to your advantage, as opposed to looking at your situation and going, this isn't fair, this isn't right, because it puts you in a totally different vibration, it puts you in a totally different focus. And another thing from the book, I kind of wanted to bring in the, you know, the spiritual and the scientific in terms of how focused our thoughts can be in different areas, and the importance of that, considering how many thoughts we have a day, and where our energy is focused. And I think it kind of it reaches to so many people. And I say at the, you know, the start of the book, this is for anyone, but equally it can be for all aspects of your life, in terms of, you know, making sure that the inner game is the only game that you can play, and ultimately the only game that you can win. So yeah,
it's incredible. The one beautiful thing that, well, there's many beautiful things that I love that you touched on. Not only the impact of how it's going to help people that would 100% relate to what it is, whatever the title they use it, whether it's like abusive relationships or whatever, and bits and pieces, like we hear it out there. There's large groups that have, you know, labeled like narcissistic relationships or passive aggressive relationships or controlling relationships. But when I listen to you share, there are aspects of those that end up under this title of coercive control, which I don't think a lot of us have heard about. And so sometimes we can justify, oh, well, you know, she's just a little bit controlling, or he's just a little narcissistic, he likes the attention on him, or, you know, it's normal in marriage or relationship to not have everything that you like, or of course they're supportive here, but not here. And that whole, it's like a scale, right? Scale, good, bad, not, she makes me, he makes me, all that kind of stuff. And I think that I think what you're explaining is when it gets painful to you.
Yeah,
and when
absolutely.
you had something that was so valuable to you that you couldn't believe that someone wasn't, because this had been such a dream, whatever it is for you, you know, whatever it is for people, like sometimes it's a job, it's a parent, it's your kids. And I love how you talk about how you started self-caring yourself to be a model for your children, because I think so many of us get it together no matter what's going on, and we break free from ourselves because we are not at the place where we care about us 100%, but we sure care about our little beings, right? And there's this overwhelming, we need to be better people, whether you put in parent, owner, business person, role model, whatever it is. And I love that you bring up the issue of self-care, because for a lot of people think self-care is going to the spa. They do, they're like, oh, pampering yourself, which is just out of my budget or out of my sphere. But you're talking about self-care, like eating well, reading well, listening well, having people in your life that are happy for you, healthy for you. I think the least expensive form of self-care that anyone can do is look at who you're hanging with.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
honestly, it doesn't cost any money to add a friend or delete one. I mean, we do it on Facebook all the time, don't we? So it doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, you sourced me out on LinkedIn, right? I mean, here we are. So, you hounded your publisher there, right? So self-care doesn't have to be a 3-hour treatment, getting a facial. Now, please, everybody go do it, because we all deserve it, men, women, and we're now taking our kids to go get their nails done, right? But self-care is a critical baseline of knowing how much you care about yourself, because it doesn't cost necessarily a lot of money. And eating good food, we in Caroline, we talk about putting, I talk about herbs and sugar-free, and we put up good products and healthy, and all those things are parts of our life and how that's important for ourselves. So I really love that you touched on the self-care. And, we could talk about, this for a long time. I think you were so comprehensive in talking about what your book entails, and that people should read it and have it on hand. I think healthcare, practitioners, and anyone who's in health and wellness, and anyone who's in psychology, and anyone who's like, that whole Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins, Oprah, Brene Brown, Ellen DeGeneres, all of those people really should read your book, because it's always inspiring to hear somebody overcome. It's always inspiring. When I hear you overcome your situation, it's going to help me go out there and exercise like I need to do it, right? It's a positive vibe. You want to align with positive vibe. I love the word reframing what happens to us in a way that we can take something from it and become stronger, better, stronger, better, stronger, better. But please tell us, what is next for you? You just launched this book, right? You've just launched this book. I know Caroline's got another question for you, but I was going to say, you've just launched this book. And you are in the process of that. That alone would be uncomfortable. That alone, putting your personal life, there's a lot of people I know that do books that write it in someone else's name, right? And so you've put it into your name. Your family has read this. Your friends have read this. God knows the person that you spent time with has probably read it. What was it like to go through the process of coming out? And what, and so where are you at in that? And then where is Liz going? Where are you going, girl? Where are you going, girl?
Yeah. So I mean, the whole, you asked, the whole process of coming out, just writing the book, and I remember, contacting my my book publisher, Tanya Coley, and just going, okay, I want to write this book. It's been a year now, because it took me a year, if I'm honest. 13 months before I was actually ready to write the book, because I had resentment and anger and all of those emotions going on. And so when I, initially kind of wrote the book, I was very much focused on, I knew exactly what I wanted to write. I knew exactly how it wanted to be, and I wrote the book in 90 days, and obviously that you have a process, as that it's the editing, isn't it, afterwards, that kind of sort of takes the time, and so I did go through stages where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, well I can't say that, or I can't say that, and I'm really worried about what I was going to say, but there was never a question of maybe using somebody else's name. I wanted this to be my story. I wanted this to be a different story that I was telling the universe. I wanted it to reach people who understood what it was like to go through those relationships. And because that was what I wanted initially, like I said, it was only about one person, but I knew it would start the momentum. And so it was so important for me that overrided those feelings of, oh my gosh, I'm worried about this, I'm nervous about this, so what happens if this happens, oh gosh, have I said too much? But even though I had those feelings, it was far more important for me to spread awareness and help people and serve other people, because I knew that I wanted to have a 3-month program, which would go in line with the book. That was always in my head. And so actually those feelings of worry and that procrastination about it was outweighed by awareness, helping and supporting other people. It always came down to, what could I do to help somebody pinpoint what they're feeling, identify what it is, and then be free to make a choice. And that was it for me. I didn't have that. I didn't feel I had a choice, because I didn't know what I was going through. And it wasn't until I identified it that I could say, I've got that choice now. And I took my damn sweet time, but equally again in reframing that, I was sifting and sorting as such through life to be able to find the relationship that I'm now in, where I truly feel I've found my soulmate. So I kind of look at that in terms of like what we say, reframing it in a positive way, that's great now. And I've got so many kind of supportive people around me, which is great. And so yeah, that's what I kind of wanted. And so there was that worry of putting me out there, but equally that got overridden by wanting to help and serve others, and then the program in line with it as well. And which again is what I wanted to do, because I wanted to be able to share the tools that worked for me, because I couldn't find anything out there that would work for me. I did the Freedom program, and it was just at the start of COVID, so that got cut short, and that actually left me in the place of, so what do I do now? Where do I go now? Okay, I've got to go in here. I've got to go inside. I've got to pay attention to how I feel inside. I've got to take full control over my life, and concentrate on the thoughts that I think, because what was coming into my experience was based on the thoughts I kept thinking that was just affecting my experience. And it was through that I had to get the focus. And once I got that focus, everything else started to fall in place, and allowed me to continue. I like to say continue on my journey of healing and empowerment, because I don't believe we're ever done. I truly don't. So but then following from that, so my next book is going to be called Some Awesome Things Kiddies Could Say to Feel Empowered, and because I think that's really important in terms of, so many times I wanted to talk to my girls and I wanted to tell them and give them tools to support them, but I was so worried about slating the other parent and coming across in a negative way. Most of the time I said nothing, and I didn't do me or the girls didn't do them a great service by doing that. So I wanted to make sure that that this process involved children as well, because ultimately that type of behaviour filters down to the children. So the next book is going to be about children. There is a little help script within the book, but I want to extend on that, and help children to feel empowered by the things that they can say, and sometimes the questions they can ask as well. And yeah, on the 11th of September I've got a speaking engagement for Des O'Connor in London, so I'm really chuffed about that. That's going to be my kind of first on stage speaking event, talking about a decision can shift a paradigm, and yeah, so my speech for that is coming up. And yeah, just kind of doing podcasts and always developing myself, as in personal development. Like I said, I love reading, I love listening to the old greats, Neville Goddard and people like that. So yeah, all positive, all onwards and upwards, but still just pushing through those fears daily, because they're always going to be there. I just mix it up a little bit with faith now, which makes a whole difference to my life.
I'm so happy to hear that. And there's one thing that I really hear from you is that, and I'm sure the process is not finished, but you have healed. There are some people that will get out of some situations, but they don't really have time to go through the process. So they keep carrying it with them. Like they'll stay single for the rest of their life because never again will I trust a man. You really moved on, and that in itself is beautiful. And the fact that you moved on, I have to say, was also beautiful for your daughters, because you not only taught them that this is not okay, but you also taught them, without realizing it, that they have to put themselves first. You have to be okay. And you guys were talking about self-care. For me, when I hear all the description of self-care that you give, I hear self-worth, because when you think you're worth it, you will do the self-care that goes with it. So I think it's a beautiful journey that you're going through, and thank you so much for sharing it with everyone. And
thank you.
I'm really happy that actually there's a book that will be talking about kids, your next book, and because like I told you in pre-interview, for me, when these situations happen, whatever kind of situation, when it happens to a family, I'm always thinking about the kids and how is it going to impact them later on? Because as parents, clearly, we want to shelter them from everything and we want the best for them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes we fail.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that there's also that other book that comes. But I really encourage everyone to get Lis Hoyte's book, which is called Break Free. You can find it on Amazon. Is there any other place we can find it, Liz?
Yeah, it's on so Amazon. You can get obviously the paperback or the Kindle version on Amazon, and it's also available in Waterstones as well. There's a couple of other sites and it's just gone out of my head, but those are probably those are the main things. But yeah, it's so Lis Hoyte Break Free, and also anything that anyone wants to know or any events that people want to book or hire me for speaking engagements, whether it's a small group or a large group, you can get all of that information off my website, which is lisreallywhat.com. So
that's so cool. Cool title, Lis Really What.
Yeah, just lisreallywhat.com, and then you can find out all stuff, booking appointments for the program, one-to-one or group coaching. So it's all there. So it's just about trying to just I
encourage everyone to visit the website because I think that what Lis touches on impacts all of us in different ways and at different level. So I'm going to tell you my piece. Thank you so much for being here. It was an honor.
Thank you.
Deb close the show because she has this thing about wanting to have the last word. So thank you so much, Lis. It was nice to see you, and I will follow you for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you.
Awesome. That was amazing. And I think, without making it sound like a fairy tale, because we know that it wasn't. This is no Princess and the Pea. This is no Cinderella, Romeo, Juliet story. This is real life, real stuff. Yeah. And I think, but it is so hopeful for people to hear that you are now in a loving relationship. Yes. You have found yourself, and then you have found someone that honors who you are and who you feel you are today. And you are about to embark on a new journey in that experience, right? And so so that's a whole other, maybe we'll talk about that with your kids' book. There might be a reason why Lis is writing a kid's book.
Yes,
and it's incredible. And it's incredible. So so leave that. But we'll leave that. I know I have, I've been telling Caroline that me and Caroline, as the world changes, are going to be getting ourselves on stage very soon. And I can absolutely see you rocking the stage with us and sharing some of your story. Absolutely. And I did want to say not only thanks to Lis, but anyone is out there listening, not only go to Lis for all of the things that she talked about, but if you have a story, or if there's something that you're doing, whether it's nonprofit, profit, if you're a lifepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur, and you want to come have this experience and hang out with me and Caroline, then please contact us, because it's our mission to empower entrepreneurs. It's our mission to empower people that make change, game changers, lifepreneurs, whatever you want to call yourself. We'd love to have you on the show. We also have other platforms. Our book launch is October 1st for, an anthology of 20 powerful women in business that are sharing their stories much like this and how they got themselves to high level success, both income and personal development. That launch is October 1st. And so we invite anyone who wants to have a VIP message to that. Please let us know. We'd love to have you. And Lis, you absolutely need to be there.
Lovely. Thank you.
And then we also have this incredible planner. And this planner that we have, and Lis, you need to be in this planner as well, is we have, we started off, we don't have that many left, but I'm just going to say, because that's the number in my head, we have over 100 spots for people that are game-changing, life-changing in personal development or business, or you're just out there and you got something to say. Instead of making those memes, we have quote spots available in this Ultimate Entrepreneur Planner. So it's a planner full of personal and business development that helps people in their business and their lives. And we wanted to open up. So we literally made spots in our planner for some people to say what it is that they want to come say. So that's kind of our dharma. That's what we do for our service. And we just love working with people that have your vibe and So anyways, people, you know how to contact us, just contact us, right? The True That Show. So it was a pleasure to have you. Do you have any last words before we final off and send out this amazing podcast and video to the world?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, you know, within any type of relationship, what we can always guarantee and what we can always trust is our emotional guidance. And I think I ignored mine for so many years, but I'm really chuffed to be able to sit here and say, when we rely on that, and we feel how we feel, we can never be wrong for how we feel. So if something doesn't feel right, that's okay. Trust your instinct, trust your gut. I ignored mine for many years, but equally that's the one thing that we can rely on is our emotional guidance system. Definitely.